Alright, I've wanted to record my views on this pretty much since it happened. Because when it happened, I knew already exactly what the reaction of people on the left wing would be. I've closely been following over the last month or two the way people on the left have been reacting to various occurrences in the world and here in the United States. And sadly, it makes me pretty upset at this point to even consider myself left-wing or even progressive or anything like that. And that's because, as usually happens with labels, I find myself drifting further and further away from the sorts of ideals these people are not so much stating as acting upon. Because I don't think they really state outward what their ideals are. They don't outwardly state our goal is to repress free speech, or our goal is to make it so Islamic terrorist strikes can just completely go unnamed. So where we just hear in the news, a terrorist strike happened, people did it, but we refuse to acknowledge the religion of these people, even if the religion was clearly a motivating factor of the attack. Now, when I first heard about the Paris incident, I was in the middle of catching up with an old friend, and my father messaged me, and he said, "Did you see about the attack in Paris?" And I had not. It had only happened at this point maybe 30 minutes prior. And my initial response to this was, let me guess, Muslims. Now, if you don't know me, or didn't know me, you might think that's pretty racist. He just assumes Muslims are responsible for a large attack in Paris. That would be like there was a murder in New York City and I instantly blame it on black people, right? That's pretty racist, right? Even though most murders in New York City are committed by black people, I still wouldn't make that statement. And the reason I wouldn't make that statement, though, is because Hispanics and white people and other groups kill enough people in New York City to make it fairly probable that it could have been one of them. So to just assume it was a black person, unless, it said it happened in Harlem or it happened in a predominantly black community, to make that assumption would, while not being racist, almost be leaning towards racist. Maybe. Anyway, the reason why my assuming Muslims doing this was not at all racist or bigoted was because when there's a terrorist attack, chances really are, not just 60%, 70%, chances are something 90-something% that it was probably done in the Muslim world or committed in another part of the world by Muslims. And then when you compound the fact that France has been suffering constantly from these sort of attacks, it's just, it's a safe bet. It would be like someone, calling you from New York in January and saying, guess what kind of precipitation's falling from the sky? Snow. Yes, it could be an unusually warm January day in New York, but chances are if there's precipitation falling from the sky in January in New York, it's snow. You're making the safe. Anyway, so back to the left. Now, what did I know was going to happen immediately when I heard about this? I knew that, first off, it was going to take the news a very long time to say it was a Muslim attack, or even suppose it was an Islamic or Muslim attack. This is actually the first time in my life I've ever gone to Fox News immediately for my source of information. Because I know, out of any of the news outlets, Fox News would probably be the first to let you know for sure if it was a Muslim attack. Because their constituency looks forward to things like this because they do have racist ideals. Some of them have racist ideals. Some of them want excuses to go to war, etc. They're from a different generation for the most part. Anyway, digression. So, why would it take the more liberal news outlets, the outlets I normally follow, such a long time to report on this? Well, simply because they're petrified of being called racist. They know for a fact that if they come out and say this is an Islamic attack, too soon, before all the facts are in, people will start calling them racists because they jumped to a conclusion. It doesn't matter how many clues led you. It doesn't matter if people heard, shooters yelling Allah Akbar. It doesn't matter. ISIS had to claim responsibility for it repeatedly. They had to see the ISIS celebrations, the extremist celebrations in the Islamic world, for them to finally say, okay, this was an Islamic terrorist attack, an ISIS terrorist attack. Because they're so afraid of being called racist. Which is a very logical fear, because it turns out if you have anything bad to say about the religion of Islam, according to the left, you are a racist. And I am not the first person to notice this. I am not the 10th person to notice this. In fact, I didn't really notice this until I started watching some videos by some other more famous, more well-known people, being that I'm only known to the people I talk to about this stuff, that expressed this idea that the left, and even a particular segment of the left, which I strongly identify with, the atheist community, refuses to acknowledge that Islam is a specific problem. And this troubles me because atheists are very quick to point out how quick a problem Christianity is. They have no problems, ragging on Christianity all day. You can't rag on Christianity enough. But if you rag on Islam, you're a racist. Or there are socioeconomic reasons why Islam is so terrible. They can watch guys like Ken Ham debate Bill Nye and then still go on to build Noah's Ark things. They can watch fundamentalist Christians that just they've justified their religion every way. They can't be swayed. These people believe in God. They believe God created the world. I've talked to them personally. They're not making this up. These Christians, we know them. We believe them. We have people in our families probably. We know they really believe in God. It might be your grandmother. It might be your parents. But you've known someone in your life that has really believed in God. So, why do people have trouble believing the Islamic people who say they really believe in God, that they're really killing for their God, are really killing for their God? Atheists will not talk about this. Atheists would rather rag on Christians. They think Christians are a bigger problem because they experience Christians every day. There are Christian fundamentalists in America. But we're not talking about Christians here because Christians aren't really killing anyone. We're not talking about Christians here because when Christians have gripes about social problems, they respond through legitimate political avenues. They respect free speech. They respect systems of law, for the most part. There are very minor, specific examples, like the Kim Davis incident, where someone didn't respect law. But she didn't respect the law by not allowing two people to get married. She didn't respect the law because it was her legal obligation to marry those people. She did not kill these people. She did not take any steps to assure these people were socially ostracized or punished outside of that denial of that specific right in any other way. She wasn't harassing these people outside of work. Now, and this is considered an extreme example. Like, this was one of the most extreme examples in the United States of America of Christians doing Christian fundamental things. This was an extreme example of fundamental Christianity in the year 2015. Not the year 1900, not the year 1800, not during the Inquisition, and not during the Crusades, not during the Salem witch trials. In the year 2015, an extremist Christian refuses to let two gay people get married. Okay, we have that fully understood now, I hope. That is an we're all going to agree. That was all over the news. That was extremist. We have to agree on that. You can find more extreme examples, such as Dylan Roof, who wasn't really doing it for Christian reasons. He was doing it for racial reasons. But again, there's a more extreme version of, let's say, white terrorism. That's it. These are our extremists. Now, all you would have to do is go and look at any week in various Muslim nations around the world, or nations that are bordering Muslim nations, and just take a little look at how many cases there are like Dylan Roof. How many cases there are where they don't just not let gay people get married. You can't be out of the closet. You can't be openly gay in a Muslim country. You can't. You just cannot. And if you're found out to be, you are normally executed. And by found out, this could be by your parents, who will also actually excommunicate you or report you to authorities for being an atheist. Fellow atheists out there. Being an atheist in a Muslim-majority country, you think, or we think, atheists are the most repressed people in America. And we're right to some degree. It'd be much harder to run for a political office as atheist than anything else, right? Right. But we enjoy the full freedoms. We can do anything we want. We don't have to worry about people killing us. Christians are not killing atheists in America. They're not doing it. But you know who is killing atheists? Muslims in Muslim-majority countries are killing atheists. No. Not all Muslims. And I thought this was a joke when other YouTubers had to say it so much. No, not all Muslims line. But I have to say right now, no, not all Muslims do bad things. I understand this. We all understand this. This is a universally understood fact. That not all Muslims throw gay people from rooftops. Not all Muslims are jihadists. Not all Muslims support the abject repression of women. There is no more repressed group of women on earth than in the Muslim community, as far as I know. And no, not every Muslim community, but parts of the Muslim community. Certain elements of the Muslim community contain within them the most backwards, regressive groups of people that there are to be found. It's this simple. So, where was I with this? Right. The left has done this really weird thing here, where it's not okay to say any of the things I'm saying right now. It's just not. It's not okay. People do not agree with things I'm saying right here, and I don't understand why. And I think it's because of this meme they've been sold of Islamophobia, and this meme of being white and talking about a non-white group in a condescending or criticizing way is racist. And as I was just saying, groups like atheists, groups like women, groups like homosexuals, groups that the left is comprised of, groups that the left champions in America. The left gets upset in America if someone makes a slightly racist remark or a slightly sexist remark, or if a woman is, treated as, a sexual object by the media. We flip out in America. Meanwhile, in Muslim countries, women are having their genitals mutilated. Women are not allowed to drive. They're not allowed to hold jobs. They're not allowed to receive educations. They're literally not treated as humans. They're treated as chattel. They're treated as an object to own, to possess, not a human being with individual rights and free will. And yes, there are some Muslim nations which are more progressive on all of these things than others. But if you want to find people on earth that are treating their women worse than anything else, you have to go to a Muslim nation. And that is what we are talking about. There is a problem in Islam right now. Not a problem in Christianity that we're talking about right now. There are problems in Christianity. The further back you go in Christianity, the more problems there are. Right now, we are not talking about Christianity because, again, Christians are not doing the sorts of things Muslims do. Some Christians, I'm sure, are. I'm sure there are Christians out there, very extreme Christians, you can find that can almost match an Islamic fundamentalist. I'm sure they're out there, but they are so rare. They are so rare that maybe once every few years one will make the news. Muslims make the news weekly. You might not see it. But all you have to do is go read newspapers, go read things that report on the Middle East and places where Muslims live. And you will find Muslims in the news for things that we would consider over-the-top extreme. Stories that would be the story of the year. Story of, the biggest event of the year in America is stuff that happens in the Muslim community on a weekly basis. And this is a fact. You can look this up. This is not conjecture. This is readily available. So why aren't we talking about it? Why do we think talking about a doctrine is racist? Let's move on to that now. Because this is the next thing that really confounds me. Islam is not a race. Islam is a religion. Christianity is a religion. They are the same thing. You are not born a Christian. You are not a Christian child. You are not a Christian until you are old enough to understand the doctrine, to read and understand the doctrine of Christianity. Whether you choose to or not is up to you. You are not a Christian until you are old enough to understand the group you're joining. Your parents might call you that, whatever. In my opinion, and the opinion of any sane person, you do not belong to a cult until you are old enough to know what that cult expects of you and for you to agree to that as a sentient human being. There are limits of age on sex. You cannot have sexual intercourse with someone in most civilized nations unless you're at least 16, and some it's a little younger, some much older. Whatever. There's an age of consent for sexual action. There's an age of consent for consuming alcohol. There is an age of consent for driving. There is an age of consent for joining religious cults. Or there should be. Anyway. You are not a Muslim child. You are not a Muslim until you can decide for yourself to be a Muslim. However, their culture does not give them the choice to do that. A choice that should be a human right. A choice that should clearly be up to oneself is not given to these people. They are indoctrinated, they are raised, and they are made very clear what the exact punishment will be if they choose to defect. This is a problem. These people are not receiving freedom. They're not receiving the core tenets of what we consider Western values, the most important things to us. Beyond our petty, personal, not petty, but pet peeves, let's say. Be it you're a feminist, be it you're a vegan or an environmentalist, whatever you may be, that issue is nothing without the freedom to express yourself and freedom of speech. If you do not have those freedoms, every issue you care about means nothing because you can't say a thing about it. And this is the state in the Muslim world. You can't say a thing about injustice. You don't receive any of the most important liberties we consider core to us. And then when people want to say, well, you're being xenophobic, you're being racist, you're not understanding another group of people, there is no war of religions or war of civilizations or war of cultures here. No, you are wrong when you say that. You are abjectly wrong. You are horribly, terribly wrong, and you do not understand what you are talking about. You do not understand what you are talking about. You have not researched Islam. You have not researched this stuff. You have not looked into it. You have not spent any real time delving into this subject, and I guarantee that you just have not. If you are an American, if you are an American white person, and you are saying this, you know nothing. I understand why Muslims and people from Islamic nations that don't really follow Islam defend Muslims. Because that's their heritage, that's their family, that's their culture. It's very hard for these people to be honest with themselves about what their culture does. You as an American, you as a detached person from this, or a European, or whatever you are, if you are detached from the Muslim community, you should not be defending it. You are defending a set of ideals. You are not defending a race of people. You as a white person, you as a Hispanic person, you as a black person, you as whoever you are, could become a Muslim tomorrow. I can't become black. I can't really become a woman. Sure, I could become transgendered. I could identify as one. But people could look at me and tell I used to be a man. Doctors could certainly tell. You can't tell who's a Muslim who isn't. You can't tell who is honestly one who isn't. You can't say, this person's a cultural Muslim, this person isn't, this person's extremist, this person is not. Only inside them do they know what they are willing to do for their religion. This is a problem. It is a problem because their religion teaches them certain things that cause them to act this way. They're not responding to America attacking Iraq. They're not responding to the fact that the West is greedy or the West... No. They're following their religion. Now, do we make ourselves a target by being visible to them, by interfering with what they do? Of course we do. They are trying to do what they want in the world. They want to convert the world to Islam. They do want Sharia law and caliphates everywhere. That is what they want. No, not every Muslim wants this, but the ones we are talking about, the ones that are extreme, the ones that cause all of these problems do want that. And the more Muslims there are, and the more we sit back and refuse to criticize them and refuse to let them criticize themselves, which is something they have to do, because change can only come within. And right now, these people will not criticize themselves. Only very, very few Muslims, thinking like Majid Nawaz, Ayan Hirsi Ali, these people have come forward as Muslims to criticize the Muslim community. And they stand out like a sore thumb because they're some of the only ones doing it. They're not apologizing for their religion. They've separated the fact that they grew up as Muslims from the fact that Islam is a doctrine to be followed or not followed. And that is what it is. You are not racist if you hate Muslims. You are not racist if you hate Muslims. Muslims are not a race. You are racist if you hate Middle Eastern people because you think Middle Eastern people are just worse than everyone else. They're just worse than white people. they're not as good at anything. Like, Middle Eastern people are just inferior to white people. In general, inferior to white people. That is a racist statement I just made. Middle Eastern people are inferior to white people is a racist statement. Muslims belong to a horrific death cult that is causing unrest throughout the entire world is not a racist statement. It is a criticism of a doctrine. A doctrine, like Scientology, like Mormons. A doctrine, not a race. I do not see a brown person on the street, and without knowing their religion, hate them because they might be a Muslim. I do not see brown people on the street and feel anything towards them, just like I do not see white people or black people on the street and feel anything towards them in particular. I judge people based on their actions. Association with a group is an action. When you choose to associate yourself with extremist Muslims, however you choose to do so, be it not condemning their actions, encouraging their actions, which, by the way, a lot of your moderate Muslims do. A lot of moderate Muslims might not cheer when ISIS attacks, but they're certainly not too upset about it. They might not circumcise their women, but that doesn't mean that in the normal household it isn't a male-dominated, male-ran household where the woman has very, very little input so far as things like where the children will go to school, or what money will be spent on, or anything of the sort. The sort of household that women lived in about 100 years ago in America. And these are the moderates we're talking about right now. This is a moderate Muslim view. You are a moderate Muslim if you basically let your wife run the house and you take care of everything else. That's a moderate Muslim. That's not your wife being employed or going out and having fun with her friends on the... No, that's a moderate... These are your moderate Muslims. These people that you always talk about as if they're so great, that they are the Muslims that all Muslims should be. No, these people are still homophobic. These people are still bigoted. These people are still sexist, for the most part. Are they much less so of all of these things than the extremists? Yes, they are. Much less so. But they are still holding values that if a white Christian in America held, you would be frothing at the mouth. If the values that a moderate Muslim held were transferred to white people in America, you would be enraged at these white people for holding these views. These sexist, racist, homophobic, backwards views that you are so quick to call out on white people in America. So quick, instantly. A white person does the slightest thing that could be viewed as racist or homophobic or sexist, and the left wants to eviscerate them. Meanwhile, the entire Muslim world on a daily basis does nothing but exemplify the values of homophobia and racism and sexism. This is their way of life, to be homophobic and racist and sexist. And you apologize for that. And you give them excuses for that. And you tell them that it's okay that you're circumcising your women because we invaded you. It's okay that you're throwing gays from rooftops because you have socioeconomic problems. It's perfectly fine that you go and blow up innocents in marketplaces because you might have political grievances. You are saying it's okay to do these things. That in your warped view of the world, somehow these people are justified in their actions because America or Europe has done bad things before or done bad things to them at times. When was the last time France attacked someone? It's been a while. I mean, France helps, it's an ally, but they're not going everywhere and occupying countries and doing all this stuff. Alright? Like, that's America. If they're having all these problems with America, why are they attacking European countries everywhere? Why are they attacking other Muslims? If all of these problems are because America, the West, America, is such a bully, then please tell me, why are the brunt of the attacks not on America or Americans? I'll tell you why. It's because this is, as I was saying, a war of cultures. Their culture, which I just outlined for you, is not compatible with Western culture. It is not compatible with Western culture. We cannot coexist peacefully because the values they hold are values that we would condemn if held in even minor amounts by our own citizens, as in the thought experiment I just gave you a moment ago. These people, by our standards, are completely unacceptable. And this is the majority of the ones in the Middle East. This is the majority. It is not all of them, but it is the vast majority of them. That is not me calling them all jihadists. No. That is me saying that the vast number of Muslims hold some sort of belief that if was held by white people in America, we would find horrific. I don't know if I could be any more clear on these points. I really don't. Other people have said it, and they've said it better. But I had things to say here that I needed to personally get off my chest. And I am sick of people who are supposed to stand for freedom of speech disallowing freedom of speech. You can't talk about this. I see it over my wall. If one more person says something racist, or all these people are, people are griping over people exercising their freedom of speech. And if anyone knows me, they'll know I never delete anything off my wall. I don't remove people from my Facebook. People remove me sometimes because I exercise my freedom of speech. And that's fine. You have the right to censor your Facebook and what you see. But just know that when you make a post belittling or accusing people or judging people or yelling at people for exercising their free speech, that isn't just censoring your own content. That is telling them they should be censoring their own opinions. They should be censoring themselves. They shouldn't state their opinions. And that's a really bad idea. That is horrible. That you do not wish that for people to speak their mind. I don't like seeing sexist or racist or bigoted or just ignorant content. I don't like it. I'm not happy when I have to, I don't have to, but when I choose to, when I feel so compelled to respond to someone acting in such a way, I'm not happy about that. But if that person didn't express their backwards view or their incorrect view, no one would be engaging them to correct it. That person needs to be able to state their wrong opinion for us to be able to correct them. And the more they state an incorrect opinion and the more we correct them, the better chance that they might stand back and say, hey, wait a second, maybe I am wrong. Maybe my worldview isn't correct. And yeah, maybe that seems hopeful, but people do it. People change their minds. People come from very, very, very rigid sets of beliefs and completely turn their lives around and just change everything they believe because one day someone or something just gets through to them. And when you try to repress people's free speech, when you try to insulate and shield yourself from ideas, when you think ideas should be shielded, when you think ideas are too offensive to be said, you are stopping us from having these debates. Right now you're trying to stop us from having a debate about Islam, which is the most dangerous set of ideas on the planet right now. Possibly rivaled by the set of ideas that climate change is not a very big deal. These are the two things we have to deal with right now. We have to deal with the fact that people are denying climate change exists or that it's a big problem, and we're dealing with people that are denying that Islam is a big problem. And the biggest problem is the people that are doing this are on opposite sides. we have if the climate change deniers and the Islam deniers were the same people, we would have a much easier time. But unfortunately, now we're divided between these two groups with our two biggest, what I believe to be our biggest issues of this day and age. And it's disheartening, and I find myself in the middle, as I do very often, because I've never been very good with identifying with groups at all. And I really would suggest the rest of you try to take a step back from your group you're in, from what the propaganda, what your group is saying. It's very easy to see, okay, like, you know, this website I always follow is stating this opinion. This YouTube channel I always follow is stating this opinion. This person who might be me, I know for this case a lot of you agree with me on everything I post on my wall on Facebook or whatever. And you probably were surprised to see the post I made the last few days. You're like, I agree with this guy on almost everything. He always has something insightful to say. Why is he posting something racist? Why is he attacking Islam? I didn't think he was this person. Well, the reason it doesn't sit right with you is because something isn't right. I'm not following the narrative. I have an opinion about this that wasn't plucked out of thin air. It just so happens that Islam and religion is something I know a lot about. It's something I've read a lot about. It's something I've talked to a lot of Muslims. I've spent I don't know how many hours just reading and watching documentaries and just watching, you know, debates and speeches, and I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I mean, I had a Muslim confront me the other night on a thread and state that the Holy Quran didn't have hateful stuff in it, and I was easily able to pick out many, many passages because I knew they were there. And it's that simple. Like, if I didn't know anything about Islam, if I was totally blind to this subject, I might be following the left-wing narrative more. I might think that this is a problem that the West caused. But I know their religious causality. I understand these people are serious about their religion. I understand how serious they are about their religion. And I am a few steps back, and I see what's going on here. And I'm very disturbed by it, and I'm very upset with a lot of you. I'm very upset because of the freedom of speech thing, mostly. But the fact that you all want to stand up for these values so strongly, and you get so mad when anyone says anything about them, and you know what I'm talking about, you know, homophobia, sexism, and racism. And you refuse to confront these issues in communities that are non-white. You refuse to confront these issues with Middle Eastern people, with Muslims as your peers. You refuse to acknowledge that these Muslims are humans, are your peers, and that they should be condemned and they should be spoken to the same way you would speak to a white male if he was sexist or racist towards you or anyone else. You would confront him harshly. We should be confronting these people harshly. And that is my only point. Their values are incompatible with ours. We need to confront them. I am not saying confront them by killing them, but we need to confront them. And the only way to do that is to talk about it. And if you don't think people should be talking about it, and you don't want to see it, and you don't want to talk about it, the issue will go unsolved. It will. We're not going to just love, peace, and understanding this away. They are following extremist religious views. And those views make them blind to normal, rational human behavior. And if you don't believe that, if you really don't believe that, all you have to do is watch the videos of it. All you have to do is read and see and look what these people are telling you why they're doing this stuff. And they're not saying it's because America is the devil. They're saying it's because they're Muslims. Anyway, my thoughts here were certainly disjointed. This is my first time doing anything like this. I could have organized this better. This was right off the cuff. If you made it through this, I thank you for listening. I hope if you disagree with me, you will tell me why you disagree so we can discuss it. But you'll also at least take time to think about my points. Sometimes you have to think about things for a little bit to understand them. Sometimes ideas at first don't resonate very well with you. But then when you take a step back and you look and you think, you become more aware of what's actually going on, and your opinion can change. So, I'm not saying yours will, and I'm not saying I'm right. Although I am right on this issue. So I am saying I'm right. I apologize. But just don't let any narrative, even if it's a narrative you agree with 99% of the time, always be prepared for that 1% of the time when everyone you know that has been right about everything before is just dead wrong about something.